Testing, 1, 2, 3. There we go. We've got that sorted. Don't worry, I'm not off center by mistake. I need this space because we're going to be bringing up some tweets in today's show. And I don't know what it's called. Had Steidten stitched up Lopetegui? Has Lopetegui been stitched up? Have West Ham failed Lopetegui? Something along those lines. Something that's accurate and a little bit clickbaity. It's got to be a little bit interesting and get people in. Not pure clickbait. Don't make up stuff on this channel. But it's got to be enough just to, come on, come have a little watch. And the reason for that is because I've seen tweets from a neutral account. Now, as West Ham fans, naturally, we're heavily emotionally involved in all things West Ham, and that can sometimes cloud your judgment because it means more, and that's good and bad. So when things are going against your team, it might be a player out of form, could be the performance of the manager, anything. Sometimes it could feel worse than it actually is. On the flip side, things can feel better than it actually is. Let me give you an example. Earlier on this season, we drew 1-1 against Fulham. I did the review immediately after. I was really happy. And there was a few people that said, bloody hell, calm down. It was only a draw away to Fulham. But what you were missing was it was a last-minute equaliser. I loved it. I loved it. We scored a last-minute goal. I celebrated it. Emotionally, I was high. And had we equalised on the hour mark and I did the review, I would have been much calmer. We'd scored 5 minutes ago before going live, so naturally I'm going to be excited because I'm emotionally invested. Anyway, I think I've stressed my point. So when it comes to neutrals having a say on West Ham, I find it interesting because I find it very balanced. They have no dog in the fight. And there's this account, EBL 2017. It's a really good account. I followed it for quite some time and I find myself agreeing with a lot of what this person says in regards to football. So yesterday they were chatting about Kulusevski. No prediction. Actually, you know what? We will do predictions in today's video at the end, despite yesterday's embarrassment from myself. So they were chatting about Kulusevski. Agree completely. Fantastic player. One of the best players this season in Premier League, in my opinion. But they did a thread on West Ham and where it's going wrong for Lopetegui so far. And I find it very interesting and I want to go through it. Now the link to his first tweet is in the description below and the pinned comment, so you can go read the whole thread for yourself. But I've got 5 of his tweets here and we're just going to discuss it a little bit because I think it's interesting. I think it's very fair because both answers can be no. Do you think Lopetegui is doing well enough with the players he has at his disposal at West Ham? No. This is my answer. No. Do I think Tim Steidten did enough in the summer transfer window? No. Do I think the squad is suited to Lopetegui? No. But is Lopetegui doing enough with what he's got? No. All that can be true. It's not one has passed and one has failed. It can be that they both aren't doing well enough. And this is what EBL started with. He says Lopetegui's midfield threes. Now this is his or her whole argument is based around Lopetegui always having sort of ball playing midfielders. He goes on to say Lopetegui's midfield threes. So at Wolves he obviously had Neves, Nunes, Lamina, and then at Real Madrid, Casemiro, Modric, Kroos. He goes on to list the midfielders he's had as a 3 from his previous clubs. No number 10s, simply second phase profiles, whether they will be 6s, box-to-box 8s, or controlling midfielders. So that's what this person is referring to immediately, saying this is what the profile of midfielders Lopetegui's used in the past. And he goes on to say why. Because the idea is to get players like Kudus and Somerville more touches in central areas, but it hasn't worked at all. There's a massive disconnect in midfield. Lopetegui has never been an astute tactician. He has always built his teams on midfields that outpass the opposition. And this is where I think this neutral standpoint is very fair. Because now as West Ham fans, we can start to agree with this. You might not have known what Lopetegui's midfield was like in the past. That might be new information to you, might not be. But this bit here is not new information to you. What you've seen at West Ham, you can relate to this. And I think most people will be a bit like myself reading this, going, yeah, well, I agree. There is a massive disconnect in the field. And this is where I think the balance comes in. This account is not claiming Lopetegui some sort of genius. Quite the opposite. It's saying he's not an astute tactician. but he needs certain players in order to play his way to get the best out of what he's got, and this is how he does it. Because of that simple principle, Lopetegui teams could always retain possession irrespective of the pressure they were put under, force the opposition to defend deeper, assuming they weren't already exploited in transition, and as a consequence of that, they could press high. So again, it's just talking about how Lopetegui's teams would play in the past. And you can relate to this because you've seen it at Wolves. I can't refer to Lopetegui's Real Madrid. He was only there for 14 games. Certainly I've seen his Spanish team play, but I can't recall it off the top of my head. I didn't see his Porto. I've seen his Sevilla team play quite a bit. But from what I've seen from him at Wolves, that passing midfield is certainly something he requires. And we discussed that in the summer. That's the advantages of doing these videos. But it's not just me and other people that might have appeared in Hamish Chat. It's people in the comments as well. The subscribers of Hamish Chat. I've been talking about this since before he was employed, really, which is it's almost possession for possession's sake at some points, which is the possession at West Ham will increase, but you're not necessarily going to have it in the final third. It'll be the middle third and the defensive third, so your centre-backs are going to see plenty of the ball. Your midfield is going to see plenty of the ball. It doesn't mean that you're going to have more chances. You're just going to have more of the ball in safer areas. He goes on to say, now, like I said, I've only taken about half his tweets because I don't want to rip off his work completely, but like I said, interesting thread. Their positional play was never elite because the fullbacks often had to travel high to occupy the spaces in the last line. Here you go. This is something we've always assumed we would see at West Ham, and at the early stages of the season, I didn't feel like we've seen it too much, but certainly in the last month or so. One thing I will say is quite often I get frustrated with the lack of taking advantage of an international break or a break where you know you're knocked out the FA Cup, so you have that weekend off or something. Quite often they'll go away for bonding, or they'll just let the players do their own thing to go away with their families. Now that has benefits, of course, but I do think on the training ground there's got to be some perks. And one advantage of not having European football is far more time on the training ground. In the previous few seasons, we rarely got a week where you'd play on the Saturday and then you wouldn't play until the following Saturday. Because of the European football, we were playing a lot of midweek games. So in terms of training ground time, in terms of full day training, because a lot of the times in the last few seasons where West Ham players were in training, you'd imagine it was a relaxed session. It was analysing the previous game, looking at the next game tactically. In terms of actually doing tactics out on the training field, the time was quite low, actually. So there has to be advantages in that in European football. And that's what I was hoping to see this season, regardless of Lopetegui, whoever came in. I was wanting to see something that said we're using this time to get better. And I think the fullback's role under Lopetegui at West Ham has changed. Like I said, I feel like they're further up the pitch than they were at the start of the season. And now it's not working, but that goes hand in hand with what that tweet said in regards to how Lopetegui played at previous clubs. The fullbacks got high, they entered the offensive line, and that's where the width came from. And then the wide players came in field. And this is a bit of confirmation bias for me, because this is what I suspected we would see at West Ham under Lopetegui. And I think we've seen it at times in pre-season. But the opposition was that poor, it was difficult to really gauge it. Anyway, moving on to the last tweet I've got from him. To improve, we could see the implementation of a flat double pivot as opposed to the 3-1 build-up shape we often see when Alvarez and Rodriguez start together. Now, I'm going to be a little bit patronising in a second for those saying, what on earth does that mean? It ain't Lopetegui's style, but it'll connect the team together. Issues will still remain, but it's a short-term option. Now, apologies if I'm way to patronise you. I don't mean to. I just don't want to assume everybody knows what this means. And the reason of that is because if I said this to Gonzo, I think he'd go, what on earth are you talking about? So the 3-1 build-up shape is what we have seen a lot. Not many people like it too much under Lopetegui, which is when Alvarez or Rodriguez, because that's what it says, when those two start together. It's when one of those, Alvarez usually, would drop in between the centre-backs. So the 3-1 build-up would be, the three would be Kilman, Alvarez and Todibo. Your two centre-backs, Alvarez is dropped in between them. And the one would remain Rodriguez in front of them. So that's the 3-1 part. And the flat double pivot would be that Alvarez just doesn't drop back. So we stick with Kilman and Todibo, and in front of them, we've got Alvarez and Rodriguez. Hopefully that's not too patronising for you, but that's explaining what that tweet is referring to, and they think that could be the short-term solution for Lopetegui getting success at West Ham. It's not his style, but it's maybe what he needs. But I go back to what I said at the start of the video. So has Lopetegui been stitched up then? Because this account's saying we don't have the players to play this style, the way that he plays in midfield. And I know that loads of people watching this are agreeing right now because I've seen it. I've read comments. We get about 3,500 comments on this channel every month. 3,500 comments. That's a lot. I read 90% of them, probably. A lot of people, loads, have said the midfield. That's the issue. Where was the player? Why didn't we bring somebody in? I completely agree. I really wanted Matt O'Reilly. A lot of people really wanted Alex Garcia. Lopetegui really wanted Alex Garcia. And this is key because I've seen a bit of him since he's gone to Leverkusen. Completely different midfielder to what we've got at West Ham. So I can see why Lopetegui wanted him. But then we didn't go get someone. It wasn't Alex Garcia or here's the second choice. It was Alex Garcia or, well, nobody. Yes, we got Rodriguez in, but that's not like for like. And this is where the frustration and the confusion comes in. Garcia, Rodriguez, they ain't the same players. Duran, Fulkrug, they ain't the same players. Wan-Bissaka, Kyle Walker-Peters, they ain't the same players. So it feels even more mismatched than ever. So has Lopetegui been stitched up a little bit? I would suggest yes is the answer. Like I said, doesn't mean Lopetegui's doing well enough. I still think Lopetegui should be doing better. A better coach would adapt his tactics to suit the player he's got rather than play his way anyway and suffer because the players you've got are not capable of playing your way. But can he play his way? If you go by what that account has said, and this is how his midfields function, the answer is no. And like I said, there's an element of confirmation bias here. Of course there is. But what makes this even more confusing is the midfielder that West Ham own. You can probably guess where I'm going here now because of that terminology. The midfielder that West Ham own, possibly most suited to this, is James Ward-Prowse. I would argue that another midfielder suited to this is Flynn Downs, someone we owned, we sold him in the summer. Because you look at Flynn Downs, you look how Southampton play under Russell Martin, pass. They're not very good. They have their way of playing, and it's a little bit Burnley-esque last season. Company came up with his style of football and continued to play it even though they weren't good enough. Southampton are the same. Russell Martin's got his way of playing and he's sticking to it. It is not working. The players aren't good enough. But it worked for Vincent Kompany personally, brand Russell Martin. It might work for him. But Flynn Downs was a key part of that last season for the promotion. They got him back, and I've seen a bit of Southampton, and Flynn Downs has looked good. Not excellent, solid. 6.5, 7 out of 10. So he's playing this passing possession type football. So Flynn Downs and James Ward-Prowse could possibly do okay under Lopetegui, or Lopetegui could use those players. Yeah, we sold one and loaned one out. Brought in Rodriguez, kept Thomas Souček. Now, this isn't a criticism of Thomas Souček. Thomas Souček has got Lopetegui out of jail on many occasions this season. He's been one of our better performing players. But that doesn't mean that should be the case. You go back and you look at the players that this account is listed. You go back and think about what you know of Lopetegui. There was a reason many people, including I, and I've got this wrong, many people thought Souček won't succeed under Lopetegui. Now, you could say that some games he hasn't succeeded, and I think that is true. Some games he's got him out of jail, and some games he's looked poor in. I think both can be true. Both is true as far as I'm concerned. But then, why? Why have we done this? Why have we decided that when we're assembling this squad, James Ward-Prowse is the one we're going to loan out? Why have we decided Flynn Downs is the one we're going to sell? Well, I know why. Worth a bit of money, and not many players that we sold in the summer were worth money. I think the injury to Edson Alvarez didn't help. I could be getting my timelines wrong here. We might have sold Flynn before Alvarez got injured, so that would null and void that point I've just made. This is based on a hunch that I think we might have sold Alvarez had he not got injured, or he would have wanted to leave had he not got injured. That's my opinion. But it just makes me think, well, we've maybe sold the player most suited to Lopetegui's style that we had at the club. We didn't bring in a midfielder that would be suited to the way Lopetegui wants to play. So has he been stitched up? I think to some extent the answer is yes. Like I said, it doesn't, just to reiterate for like the fifth time, it doesn't mean Lopetegui's doing well. It doesn't mean that Lopetegui would do well if we had those players. We might have retained Ward-Prowse, signed Alex Garcia, and still been crap. I would teeter on that side and saying that we would suddenly be good. But the question is, ultimately, do we have the players that Lopetegui requires in order to play the Lopetegui way? I think the answer is no. So why is that? Who's to blame? And I think it comes down to both of them, David Sullivan and Tim Steidten. I think it comes down to Tim Steidten for not assembling his squad correctly, but also comes down to David Sullivan for perhaps forcing a head coach on your technical director that he, with a style of play that he does not want to play at the club. Continentally, England's a bit behind in regards to the sporting director, technical director, director of football. England's a little bit behind. But certainly in Germany, the guy in charge in those roles, he sets the identity of the football club and goes and hires players and goes and hires head coaches in order to fit that style. We did neither. We didn't pick an identity. We picked a head coach. Then we picked players that were good. Wan-Bissaka's a good right back, but it doesn't mean he's the right back. Füllkrug's a good striker. Put his injuries to aside, Füllkrug's a good striker, but even if he was fit, it doesn't mean he's the right striker for the way Lopetegui plays. We signed good players, but it doesn't mean we assembled a squad. And that's where I'm going to leave it. So has Lopetegui been stitched up? Kind of. Anyway, good account. Go follow them. EBL 2017. I'll put the link in the description below where you can find the first tweet of this thread and you can have a read of it yourself. But their solution is to go to a flat double pivot. I'm inclined to agree with that one because we've seen the drop it back into centre backs. It's not really worked. Is it going to get better? I don't think so. Anyway, before we disappear, I just want to do a little promotion for our Patreon because we have a promotion on until the end of November, and that's Half Price Addicts tier, which is our top tier. So if you go on to patreon.com/HammersChat, click that you want to become an addict. It'll say 7-day trial. Just click on that. But on the payment page, there's a box where you can put a discount code. Let me read it out to you because there's five digits letters. 8D52A. 8 Delta 52 Alpha. Pop that in, you'll get your first month half price. In the next 7 days, we have got 9 videos coming up. So we've got the opposition prediction for the Newcastle game. We've got the breakfast show tomorrow morning, myself and Gonzo. Tuesday, we'll have the player ratings. Tuesday night, we've got a podcast. During the week, we've got another podcast. We've got a Hammers Chat update type vlog coming up. We've got Amateur Scout coming up. And then we've got the Arsenal opposition prediction and breakfast show next Saturday ahead of that game as well. So there's at least 9 videos on Patreon in the next 7 days. And there's prediction competition. So if you join as an addict, take advantage of that offer. You get the first month half price. Enter the prediction competition for the Newcastle game. And if you are the winner, you will win a signed captain's armband, which has been signed by Julian Dix. Now, this one's signed by Paul Di Canio. The Julian Dix ones arrive next week or the week after. But these are available on the store, I think. Anyway, signed Julian Dix captain's armband, as well as a signed Jimmy Walker book, as well as dedicated to you. So if your name is Bob, Jimmy Walker will write to Bob and sign it for you. And a print, which is done by Canning Town Len, will be signed to you from Jimmy Walker as well. So you get 3 things. If you're an addict and you win the prediction competition, you get the armband, the book, and the print as well. So I think it's good. I think it's generous. We've given away, well, I've got to do the draw next week for the previous 3 games, but we've had winners in the previous 3 games. The Everton game, the Man United game, and the other game. I forgot who it is. There's 3 games. This is embarrassing. Nice one, Gio. Anyway, the previous 3 games, we've had a winner in all 3, so we're doing the draw for them. We're giving away signed shirts and everything. Patreon.com/Hamish Chat. Thank you to anybody who does join up and who currently has joined up and has stuck with us. Appreciate it a lot. Prediction time, 2 games today. Yesterday was a bit embarrassing. Not just the audio was really bad yesterday. Some people complained they could see the arm. I'm not going to touch it. So yesterday I sat down and thought, right, let's move it around, see if I can get it out of the shot a little bit. And in doing so, and I moved the cable and put it back in by mistake, and it reset the boost of the audio. And I didn't realise, so it broke the audio. Anyway, so the audio was really bad yesterday. Wasn't the most embarrassing thing about the video, though. No. Some idiot, this one, predicted Man City would beat Spurs 4-0. Nice one. So today we've got 2 of the games. I'm going to say Liverpool thump Southampton 3-0. And I think Ipswich are going to do all right. I think they're going to at least score against Man U. So I'm going to say Ipswich 1, Man United 1. I think Amarim's going to do very well at that club. Very jealous. Envious of what I've heard and seen from him so far, which isn't much, but I like it. I like the cut of his jib. But I don't know. I just think 1-1. I think Liam Delap will do the business today. Anyway, that's it. Get involved in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on everything. Like I said, there's a lot of confirmation bias in this video because I agree with his account on a lot of things and what he said in regards to Lopetegui. I find myself going, yeah, I thought this too. Thanks for that, mate. Thanks for backing me up. But let me know in the comments. I'll pop back later on for a little chat, and then I will catch up with you tomorrow ahead of that game against Newcastle. See you then.